Hello, today I'm going to show you how to do some simple engraving on freeform and cylindrical surfaces. So using Hypermill HyperCAD S, I've got some text already formed into this surface here. I'm going to show you some toolpaths that can be used to machine that. And then I've also got some single line font here projected in air, and we'll show you how to get that onto the surface and get a toolpath onto it. So some of this is going to be 3-axis, some of it 5-axis. So I suppose I better begin with single line fonts. Now these are typically quite difficult to get hold of, although through digging around on the internet you can find some free samples that you can install. Check out my description box for a download link to some Kanban type fonts that I've managed to find and download myself. Um, so looking at this, how do I create that in HyperCAD S? I'm going to just remove the font there. So for this, we want to be looking at using text line. And I can click 2 points over an area. Now this is always going to be relative currently to my active worked plane. So currently I've got that set on top of this cylinder. So it's nice and in there and clear of any of the surfaces. So the text I'm going to type here is open mind. Now you can see actually it's just dipping below, but it doesn't matter because we're going to do a projection. But the single line fonts that I've got are these Kanban ones that I've installed manually. So this is great for the engraving. Now, obviously with the standard Windows font, what you get is this double lettering. So this larger open mind here has been done with double edge. So by default, HyperCAD S does have some simple what we call single line fonts, and it comes under the TGS Simplex. Now there's a couple in here, some quite fancy ones, but you do have to go digging for them. As I say, today I'll be using manually installed fonts. Quite like that one. Kanban Stick 3. So for this, obviously you can make it italic and apply some alignments. You can stretch it to cover the whole curve. You can apply this text always parallel to view. Now this isn't really required because what I'm going to be doing is from the Z work plane now is going to be projecting it onto that face. So I'm happy with my text and the size of it. I'm just going to move those up just so I can see it all. Now, currently, this is text. So you hover over it, and text typically cannot just be machined. Okay, it needs to be a real entity at this point. So what we need to do next is go to Edit and Break. Go to hover over the text and click once. So you can now see when I hover over this, it's broken it up into NURBS and lines and arcs. Obviously, this can now be used within a cycle. Should move this onto its own layer, shouldn't I? Let's move it onto new text. So once it's broken, we want to highlight it, come back to our surface, we're going to come to the curves drop down and project. So I want to project the 61 curves onto a shape, and that shape is going to be my surface here. So right now, if I was to just give it a little bit of tilt, you can see it's projected it straight down in the z-axis of my work plane. Because I've got this quite sharp crease in the surface, you might think you want it normal, but you can see that really stretches it out and this forms the text, so not the ideal result here. So just a simple projection down through the Z work plane, good enough for me. Because it's a single line font, my cycle, so I'm just setting up a quick datum and milling area. So the cycle I might use for this, possibly 5-axis contouring, be a good cycle for this. I'm just going to select a typical ball, C for chain with minimal angle. Does quite a good job here. I select my surface, because the 5-axis here is really looking at staying normal to the surface that is machining, perpendicular. So I think this should be enough. Yeah, I'm going to calculate now. So you can see here I've already applying axis change to the 2 rotary axes. It's staying normal, perpendicular to the surface normals at any given point. Clearly this is just scribing, the surface, so you won't really see any indentation of that text. For that we do need to apply some axial offset, so maybe minus 0.1. It should sit just below the surface. You can see now there is an intersect. So that's projecting onto a freeform surface, but initially I had to set up a work plane to be able to get that projection down. Now, if I wanted that text actually on a cylinder, maybe I'm doing some 4-axis engraving, spinning that C-axis, I need to get that text now wrapped around that cylinder, and this will be impossible through doing a projection. So for this, I will be using the wrapping function. So the wrapping defines a base plane over the area of text that you're doing. Now it's best, you can sort of see here, it's sort of set off at like 45 degrees, which isn't ideal. Okay, I want to be aligning this plane nice and square to the shape and direction of the text that I'm machining. So I'm going to click linear and do a direction between 2 points. And I might just pick the E central line, 2 points. And you can see now it's aligned it to that text, nice and square. The origin wants to be nice and central because, well, I mean, it's your start point. Imagine when you're moving these letters, you're starting the transition from the central point, or whichever point you pick, and then you're moving it to a position. So in this case, nice and central, I'm happy with. I need to select the target face. That's going to be the cylinder. So right now it comes on and sort of inside out. It's projecting it currently onto the inside of the surface. So when I'm looking at the outside, it's backwards. But I can simply press mirror and it will invert that. This is positionally driven by U and V parameters of that surface, so over the domain of the surface. So a nice starting point is usually 0.5 and 0.5, and I'm going to be nice and central. So right now that's wrapping around open mind, like so. I can use the rotate button to flip it, and it's perfectly now wrapping around that cylinder. So you can use the triangular node to align it manually. I think I'm going to want this at a nice 90 degrees. Again, for my cycle, pick the surface, pick the contours. Again, my fifth axis is looking at exact normal to curvature of the surface. Here we go, only utilizing the C-axis. So this allows us to use the 4-axis element. For sort of 3D lettering like so, you might consider a different cycle. Something along the lines of shape offset roughing or finishing. This is nice because these are surface-based, surface-driven cycles as opposed to contour-based. Now, if I was to use something like a 0.5 end mill or ball nose, I can use the bottom machining, and I can select all of my surfaces. Nice little connection factor in there. Using a 50% step over. So the 5-axis, always normal to the surface. This is going to give me hopefully a nice pocket machining of these surfaces. There we go. So a nice way to then get that free form lettering when you've got 3D lettering to apply. I've done it here in the selection process that I picked it. Obviously, if I picked the letters in order, it would do it in the correct manner. I think that brings me to an end on the engraving. Thanks for watching.